Welcome back everyone, Marcelo is my name. I am the niche fragrance collector and welcome back to part 2 of the Une Nuit Nomad perfume discovery series. If you missed part 1, this is it here, I'll put a link below. The purpose of these productions is so that you and I can smell fragrances across the world in real time. The way we do this, click on the link below, it'll take you to the Une Nuit Nomad website. That'll also lock in free delivery anywhere in the world. Use the code NFC10. That'll then give you 10% discount. Go ahead and purchase the discovery set. And then on this particular video, you want to bookmark it. The way you do that, click on here, place it here, and then once your discovery set arrives, boot back to this particular production and let's enjoy together. Alternatively, just keep watching and just enjoy this as a review. Now, for those who have a discovery set, we're going to cover off 5 more of the fragrances. Part 1 covers 5. This series here covers the other 5. And the reason why I've done that is I want to take my time so we can enjoy the nuances of all these fragrances. I'd like you to put the perfumes in the following order, and this will help us move through the Michael Edwards fragrance wheel. The first one we're going to test is Sun Bleached, then Click-Song, SUMA Oriental, Mr. Vetiver, and Sugar Leather. I also recommend the cards that you've received, put them face down. Don't look at the notes. Well, you do you, as you wish. My recommendation is don't look at the notes. That way, let's feel more what the fragrance is doing. The imagery on these cards are divine and actually brings you into what the story is when it comes to these fragrances. I also recommend that you don't spray on those cards. The ink will mix in with the perfume. I'm being very special, I acknowledge that. I would recommend that you spray on some kind of strip cards or something of that nature, even a 300 GSM piece of paper. That will be sufficient for you to enjoy and understand what the fragrance is. On part 1, I did talk about Alexandria and Philippe, who are the owners of the business. Previously, they met at Universal Music. Alexandria was the creative director, Philippe the marketing manager. One thing that they brought across from Universal Music into their business here is the ability to collaborate with artists. Rather than going to large perfume houses to have their fragrances created, instead they've gone to either independent perfumers or small boutique niche houses. Some of the fragrances here are from what I've discovered, some of my favorite perfumers currently within the niche world. This has allowed them to move away from the cliche. Because these are olfactory expressions of an area, they didn't want to go, Oman, for instance, should smell of oud or things of that nature. They wanted a new perspective on this. The other thing too is that they give their perfumers total creative freedom. Rather than say, I want this note or I want it to have this kind of feeling, they'll just show them music or video to say, this is what we want to capture. Now translate this into an olfactory feeling. Okay, let me begin. Now, what I'd like to do as we spray, I would like you to spray on card, but I would like you to put some on skin. So you can see the difference between how it performs on card and how it performs on your own natural skin. One that is perfect for this is Sun Bleached. For those who love clean ambrette style fragrances, musky, white florals, with a touch of sandalwood, this is magic. So I'd love you to spray. If you notice on the card, the imagery on there is the city of Muscat in Oman. This beautiful white building, and you would think Sun Bleached is in fact in reference to the beautiful gleaming white buildings. It's actually a tribute to the tunics, the white tunics that are worn, the dishtashas, in particular the Omani version of it, which has a small pom-pom here. That pom-pom is either sprayed or dipped in an attar so that you are now perfumed as you move around. From the imagery that I've seen, they are beautifully pressed, super radiant. And this fragrance is a celebration of that. Interestingly too, in the heart note, there is a clean linen accord in here. And when you smell it on card, it is so clear and distinct. The fragrance has a beautiful bergamot ambrette opening. It moves then to this soapy, clean, white linen accord, a little bit of florals in there, and finally settles to a white musk and sandalwood. On card, in my opinion, a little bit one-dimensional, but when you put this on skin, the evolution of those phases that I just mentioned is divine. I'd love you to compare, for those who have the Discovery set, with an earlier one, which is also a white musk sandalwood fragrance, and it's nothing but sea and sky. I'd love you to spray that and compare to Sun Bleached. The difference between these two is worlds apart, yet they fall into a similar category, as in they're a white musk, sandalwood kind of fragrance. The difference with some bleach is that it has myrrh. I also know that there is cardamom in the opening, is creating a spicy component to it, and it gives it a different kind of touch. I find that Nothing But Sea and Sky is gorgeous and divine, but very simple. Bergamot, sandalwood, white musk, whereas there's a lot more going on with Sun Bleached. I also love that Sun Bleached is a beautiful expression of Oman done by the perfumer Jerome Di Marino in such a unique way. He also created Amber Kanja and also Jardin de Misfah, and all three an expression of Oman, but have their own unique nuance. A floral gourmand, a bold oriental, and then this beautiful baby here. Sunshine, bright, clean. This is an easy unisex fragrance. There are white florals, but in no way do they overpower the fragrance. The clean, aldehydic white musk is so beautifully rounded, works on anybody and on any skin. I find that I get 6 hours, and it does have a moderate push. When I'm wearing it, those around me are easily detecting this fragrance. These next two celebrate patchouli in such a unique way. I have been saving skin. These are the two that I'm going to choose. If you want to see how patchouli is used in different ways, then I'd recommend you test out these two on your skin. Let's begin with Clicksong. I'm hoping you haven't turned your card over, that you're still seeing the imagery that's on, or the graphic that's on the card. You'll notice that there's a woman singing. This fragrance is in tribute to the South African singer Miriam Makeba. Interestingly, Miriam had a pretty rough upbringing. At the age of 18 days, her mother was jailed for something that is laughable. I'm not even going to go into details, but she was jailed for 6 months for doing something that is like whatever. Her whole life was marred with different problems during that tumultuous time in South Africa. Yet, her music is vibrant, it's joyous, it's happy, there's an energy to it. And the word Clicksong is in reference to one of the songs that she created, but in particular to her language, that the click sound is actually part of the dialogue. I love that this fragrance is equal part bold, but also has a gentle touch to it. I did say that I'm saving this for skin. I'm going to start patchouli. On card, interestingly, and I'd love you to smell this again. So as you sprayed it on card, are you detecting a boozy note? I always, and I've done this a few times, because there's no boozy element, there's no rum or anything of that nature that is listed. But whenever I spray, I get this very boozy, rum-like, whiskey-like component to it. A slight vanilla touch to it. On skin though, on skin, that patchouli instantly emerges. It has like a chocolatey kind of vibe to it. Interestingly, as the fragrance begins to dry down, you'll detect a gorgeous rose note. It does have a rose absolute, and I've always described this fragrance as a rose that is wrapped around a patchouli leaf. Both of these elements play equal part. As your body begins to heat up and move around, you get different elements of the fragrance coming forward. Sometimes I am detecting that rose note coming through. Other times the mustiness of the patchouli is definitely present. For me, this fragrance is gorgeous. I love that it has these beautiful components all dancing at different times. Vanilla, the benzoin, which gives it a very resinous vanilla touch to the actual fragrance. Amber, the patchouli, the rose absolute. All these components here, they just create this beautiful scent profile that you get that celebrate the life of this dynamic woman who was equal parts strong, because she had to combat all these different elements in her life, but at the same time remained optimistic and positive, and it's definitely reflected in her music. I love also on card, I'm still getting a very rum-like, vanilla, slight patchouli, bit of rose coming through. On skin though, patchouli glory mixed in with that rose absolute and a bit of that vanilla. There is also cedar in the base, and I feel that as a result of these woods and these other more robust elements, the fragrance has great longevity. 8+ hours without a problem, and I find that for me, the sillage and also the projection falls into the moderate. Very discernible, and it's a strong moderate too. It has great push all the way around me. Part one, I mentioned that When Alexandra and Philippe first created their business, it was actually a skincare spa style of product with only one fragrance. Une Nuit Nomad was the fragrance. They found that the fragrance was actually the most successful part of the business. As a result, they got rid of the skincare and expanded all things when it comes to their perfume. This is now part of the Une Nuit Nomad collection, and there are 4 in total. This SUMA Oriental was accompanied by Mr. VETIVER and also Fleur de Fleur, which actually was the original fragrance that they released, but released it under a new name, tweaked it a little bit, but it's still that beautiful white and yellow floral fragrance. Now, I'd love you to spray SUMA Oriental. SUMA Oriental starts with the most amazing spicy dark rum. It is intense. It is so divine. It has this robust and earthy power to it. That rum note does dissipate, and in place comes this beautiful rich cacao note. And for me, that cacao note stays throughout the entire fragrance. For those who are familiar with Bocanera by Orto Parisi, that one there is similar to SUMA Oriental, with the difference that it doesn't have the animalics. Bocanera has this animalic sass about it, whereas I find that here we've got this beautiful dark chocolate, but on a spicy, woody side, as opposed to any level of animalics. Love you to compare Clixon with SUMA Oriental. Clixon has this vibrance. The Rose Absolute is now coming through. It has almost like a sweetness in there. And then SUMA Oriental, this rich, deep, dark, earthy power. Literally like you have your feet in the soil, this deep, dark soil. Now I am going to put on skin. So I did put Clixon on one hand. And again, if you like patchouli, I recommend that you do this for yourself. I love the opening. SUMA Oriental has this gorgeous rum note on that opening. And you just want to sort of sit with it. It has this spiciness, it has this booziness component to it. It does have cypriol in that opening, and that cypriol does give it a level of a green, spicy, earthy component to it. It does dry down and move across to the more woody camphor side of the actual patchouli. For those who have the Discovery set, I love the imagery on the card. A moonlit beach with these patchouli leaves and palm trees on the fringe of it. It brings you into the fragrance very quickly. When I first started testing this, I thought it was a little bit more on the masculine side. I find that the patchouli is quite pronounced. I do find that that cacao has a very deep richness to it. The woods that are in the base gives it almost like a masculine edge. Recently, I was testing with my daughter, my 2 editors, who are young ladies. All 3 of them felt that this was a glorious fragrance that they could wear. Interestingly, one of my editors, on her skin, the dark rum and the more earthiness was pronounced, whereas on my other editor, darkness of that patchouli wasn't coming through as much. The cacao was present, but was getting more of the sandalwood, guaiac wood that's in the actual fragrance. On me, it's deep, it's dark, it's heavy. Interestingly though, it's not a massive projector. On me, I get a moderate to low when it comes to its sillage and projection. It is very discernible. People come close to me, they can pick up the fragrance, but it doesn't have huge push. I also find that the longevity on the fragrance is 8+ hours. This has like an internal heater to it. The cooler the evening, the colder the day, the more that this fragrance heats up and warms up on my body. I haven't worn this over summer. For me, this is exotic. This is alluring. It's highly sensual. I do love the smell of dark chocolate as a fragrance, but I don't want a gourmand chocolate. This has, as I mentioned, rich earthiness to it. It does have a spicy component, primarily in the base, but I also love the evolution from where it starts, that rum, dark rum component, how it evolves, how it moves, and finally in its dry down. Again, being a patchouli lover, for me, both Clixon and SUMA Oriental are glorious to see how the patchouli note is used in different ways. It's been hard for me not to, I guess, show my hand as to which ones I love. I want to be impartial, just share knowledge, share my experience, let you decide as to what you like, essentially, without being swayed by, I guess, my enthusiasm. I'm going to stop all that and tell you that I adore this fragrance. This is Mr. VETIVER, and for me, this is a classic gentleman's fragrance. Every man I insist, this is one that you need to have in your collection. This is my fragrance of choice for today. Thoroughly enjoying every aspect of this. On card, a little bit on the green side, dryness. On skin, I'm wearing it today, just divine. There's so many more layers to this fragrance than just what you're experiencing here. So if you're saving skin, I'd recommend that you actually spray it on. Actually, I'm gonna spray. So I'm gonna spray up here because I love the opening of this fragrance. It has a gorgeous herbal citrus component to it. Grapefruit, tarragon, basil. Just magic. Instantly, you get put into the right mood, and that is, it's a gentleman's fragrance. It's super clean. It's almost like James Bond in its presence, but James is on a day off. He's wearing a white t-shirt, jeans, a lot more casual because you can dress it up or dress it down. As a casual day-to-day fragrance, amazing. But I have worn this suited up and it is perfect for that occasion too. There is a cardamom note. I don't detect it as cleanly on card. Nope. But on skin, the cardamom, it's a green cardamom note that begins to, or that emerges there. And I love the fact that it doesn't come out straight out of the gate. Even though it's in that opening, that cardamom note takes a while for it to evolve. I love that as the fragrance begins to dry down, it does go into like a slight leathery place. Initially, I did think that there was like a leather note or a leather accord in the base, but there isn't. It's the mixture of the vetiver with a little bit of spices, also those earlier notes or those herbal notes that create this glorious, very masculine leaning fragrance. For those individuals who are new to niche, you've come in from designer, but you want something now that has that classic niche evolution, has a little bit more play when it comes to, rather than just being a linear, where it starts is where it ends, then I'd strongly recommend to you Mr. Vetiver. It's beautiful, inviting on that opening. It does move through with those classic niche notes of vetiver and moss, but also retaining some of those earlier notes of the herbal components, the basil, the tarragon. I find that for me, I get a comfortable 8 hours and its sea agent projection is always at a confident moderate. Everybody around you will definitely detect the fragrance. And as I mentioned, for me, an awesome compliment getter. Beautiful masculine fragrance. I'd love you to now test the difference between the cardamom note. In Sun Bleached, there is a cardamom note there. I am yet to detect it. It's listed on the card. Now that I'm in the dry down on the card, I am getting more of the white florals coming through. That ambrette is definitely there. The sandalwood is coming through. I'm getting a slight green cardamom. And as I mentioned, on skin, the cardamom note really pops. If you love cardamom, so that very vibrant green cardamom, then Mr. Vetiver is glorious. So you're thinking, I saved the best one to last, which possibly yes, but in fact, I'm following the Michael Edwards wheel, and this falls into a dry woods. This was my very first one that I fell in love with when I first came across the brand in the Paris store in Javoy. This is Sugar Leather, and for me, this is a massive big hitter. New release in 2023, and it's part of the Une Nuit Nomad collection. It's just seduction. When you spray this, it's almost like look, and I invite you guys to write your comments as we're going through this together. What are your thoughts on Sugar Leather? Is it not the greatest fragrance you have ever experienced? I love the balance between being a gourmand brown sugar caramel, but with this leather element, this leather component to it. And on paper, you would think this doesn't work. How could you have an animalic note like leather blended in with a gourmand sweet caramel note? And yet, when you put this on skin, bada bing, baby, it just works. And I love also the name, Sugar Leather. It is this beautiful balance between these two components, the leathery component, the animalic component, but also that sugariness, that sweetness, the burnt caramel, the burnt sugar component of it. I mentioned earlier that Alexandre and Philippe like working with perfumers in a collaborative process. This is a new perfumer. So the earlier ones done in the Oman collection was by Jerome Di Marino. This is now Anne-Sophie Begal, and she's part of Flair. I've discovered that I'm a big fan of all of Anne-Sophie's work. Soradora, obvious, Frappant, Javoy, BDK. I have a number of her fragrances in my collection. So it was no surprise when I discovered that Anne-Sophie is behind Sugar Leather. I'm like, makes sense. If you're saving some skin, I'd recommend to you Sugar Leather. This, I'd be surprised if anyone, and I look forward to your comments, says not for me. This is not one for me. This is for everybody. If you're brand new to niche, great place to begin. If you're brand new to leather, maybe you've been a little bit reluctant. Some leathers can be very animalic, very robust. Sugar Leather is glorious to begin that journey on. It starts off with this beautiful burnt sugar, dark fruit, vanilla touch, and then goes into this beautiful cinnamon spice, but it's a cinnamon that is, there is cinnamon bark, which tends to have a more woody element to it. Here, it's gourmand-like. In the dry down, I'm not there yet. Eventually it moves into this dry down. You get this beautiful suede leather touch to it. It never goes into a full animalic component. There is caramel in the base. So again, you get an idea of how it softens back that leather accord. There's also labdanum. And labdanum has this beautiful touch of being somewhat floral, but also with an animalic component to it. For those who love patchouli, here's another expression of it. So if you do love patchouli, I would love you to spray 3 fragrances: Sugar Leather, SUMA Oriental, and Click Song, and see how all 3 of them use patchouli in such a unique way. For me, I get the more camphorous component from Sugar Leather. The sugar, the caramel is definitely present, but there is that patchouli camphorousness coming through. The glory that is Click Song, that rose patchouli combination, and then the deep woody, dark cacao richness, wood, earthy. Again, it's like being planted in this rich soil, your feet immersed in rich soil, and you're just feeling like you're part of the land. That's what SUMA Oriental is. I always make the comment that if you want a beautiful date night fragrance to go out and meet somebody new for the first time, don't wear a heavy animalic fragrance. Some boys like to wear big beastly fragrances that just project everywhere. I always feel like they're a little bit intimidating. So I'm always saying add some sugary components to that, some sweet caramels or maple syrup. So if you want to find a good balance between some masculine edge to it, so there is some manliness in your fragrance, but it also has these gourmand touches, Sugar Leather balances the two perfectly. So what did you enjoy? I'd love you to spray 2, or as some people, 3 fragrances on your actual skin. Let's come back in about 15 minutes, but for you, it'll be 15 seconds. We'll see you soon. Welcome back. I'm hoping you have a beautiful scent cloud around you as you've tested some of these fragrances. The fact is, I've actually got 4 of these fragrances on me today. I've got Mr. Vetiver on my body, and I've been smelling it. As I've been speaking, the earthiness, that greenness has been emerging just so beautifully, super confident for it. So we're going to fragrance that just give you the edge. I used it today for a meeting. I was in a meeting this morning. That was my fragrance of choice to fortify me. Date night fragrance right here. I've been smelling it as I've been waving my arms around. And then these 2 glorious fragrances here in Divine. So I'm hoping that you've enjoyed being able to enjoy some of the fragrance, feel the evolution of how these fragrances move and evolve. Was there anything from the collection that you enjoyed, or as you watch this, you thought to yourself, I really want that discovery set so I can follow along? Click on the link below. That'll lock in your free delivery anywhere in the world. Use the code NFC10. That'll give you 10% off the entire site, and you can use that code as often as you like. I hope you enjoyed that. For me, this was a lot of fun to think that we can be experiencing fragrances together in real time across the world. Such a cool experience. I look forward to reading your comments, and I'll see you guys all on the next episode.